Starting. Okay, there it is. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Triad Travelogues. I am Richard, coming at you today from the outskirts of Shanghai, China, to bring you the second attempt at the third episode of this podcast. We tried to do this a couple of hours ago, and it did not work, but we've messed with some settings and we changed locations, so we're going to try to do this again. We got Brin with us today,
Hello?
who is hello. Tell us where you're at right now, because I originally thought you were in Beijing, but you're not in Beijing, right? Where are you at?
I'm in Changchun. That's in the dirty rust belt of China, right in the northeast. They call that Dongbei. I think if you were to compare Changchun to a city maybe in the US, it would be Detroit without the black people. People here have really strong accents, you know, like 他们说中国话的时候就是这样, you know, like their mouth is full of marbles, and the air is really disgusting. There's a million cars on the road, people with crazy crooked teeth. Actually,
I see that every day.
Yeah. When we had that first interview this morning, actually, I was looking out of the window, and people here get hogwar. Do you know that? Cupping. You know cupping? Where they have those red marks. Yeah. They have the red marks.
Right. The vacuum cleaner just sort of like sucks hickeys all over your back.
Yeah, that's the one. They're crazy about that here, but sometimes they don't do it properly. And this woman I was looking at, I could see this red circle on the back of her neck, and they'd sucked it so hard there were blood blisters on the back of her neck. These people are just crazy here.
Why do people do that? Why do people do for those of you that don't know or who have never been, what he's talking about is people will go to places that are, I guess it's similar to a massage, and they'll have the masseuse or whatever the person, I don't know what the person's title is, but they use kind of like a machine that's similar to a vacuum cleaner, like to put hickeys all over somebody's back. Like I've seen somebody's back completely covered with these things. Well, what's the point? What, have you ever done it before?
I've done it lots of times.
Why?
Okay. First of all, right, if they're doing it with a vacuum, that's not the right way to do it. Normally, they take these glass balls, and the glass balls are probably about this big, you know, like a cup. And the traditional way of doing it, the correct way to do it, is you get like some burning cotton wool. You hold it under there, and then as soon as it comes close to the skin, it creates a vacuum, and it goes, and it just sucks. So you know, the fire will suck the oxygen out, and that will create a vacuum. And then they stick it on acupuncture points all over the body, specifically on the back. Sometimes you see them, they'll be in the middle of the forehead like this, a little tiny one in the middle of the forehead. I used to live in Guangzhou, and Guangzhou people are crazy about it. And there's two ideas here, right? When you live in China a long time, there's a phrase you hear all the time, which is 生火, which literally means up, fire. So it's like internal heat, internal fire, right? And when you get 生火, internal heat, you'll get like, you know, like cold sores on your lips, or your eyes will be red, or, you know, you sweat more. I think it's analogous to having like a bad stomach or something. You know how Chinese people always say, drink hot water, drink hot water. That's one of the reasons.
Right.
So when you put it on the acupuncture point, it sucks out the internal fire, the internal heat. So that's one way of doing it. There's other ways.
Gotcha. Well, I've never done anything. I'm adverse to it. The idea of it scares me. You know, I don't even like hickeys. Like anything that involves like blood coming to the surface of my skin. I don't like it. I don't want anything to do with it.
Well, like,
so you're
like you just said about hickeys, right? There's another method called gua sha, and they have like this comb, which is made out of cow's horn, and they scrape. In English, it's called scraping, and they scrape, scrape, scrape until you get these long, like they look like just like hickeys. You see Chinese girls, they'll have like this hickey on their neck just here, and that's because they've like done that. But my ex-wife, she was a Chinese medicine nurse, and she would say, "Hey, we don't need that comb. Just come here and give me hickeys all over my body." So I would go up and give her hickeys all down her neck along the acupuncture lines like that, and she was kind of crazy, but I liked her. That's a good time.
Crazy is all right. A little bit crazy is all right.
A little bit.
A lot of crazy is. Yeah. So what are you doing? What are you doing in the Rust Belt? You called it the Rust Belt. What are you doing there?
To be honest, not a lot right now. What I'm working on right now is putting all my attention to my YouTube channel, which is Burbex, Brin's Urban Exploration. And that's like an urbex channel, which is mostly based in China, but recently it's spread out to other parts of the world. I'm looking at other countries as well. So I've been paying a lot of attention to that. And I guess that's how we know each other, right? YouTube channel stuff.
Right. Yeah, I actually put the link to your YouTube channel in the description section of this live stream. I also put the link to your web burbex.org. And okay, so yeah, we have you and I have this mutual thing for urban exploration, which I think more people know about it now than like 10 years ago. Yeah, but definitely. It's kind of like a subculture of people that are interested in exploring abandoned places and just generally places that you're not supposed to be. Like, how would you describe urban exploration?
Sorry, say that last. How would I describe what? Oh, urban exploration.
Urbex, yeah.
Well, when I came, like as I was growing up, there would be all these abandoned places around me. And I come from Norwich in the UK, and I can remember when I was 17 or 18, sometimes I would just want quiet time, just time on your own away from people. And I was lucky because there was an abandoned candy factory near where I lived. It was Roundtree's. I don't know. In the States, do you get fruit pastels? That's a kind of candy. Like
no,
gummy and sugar on the outside. It's kind of famous. So there was an abandoned candy factory, and I would go skulking around there. And at that time, I used to be into something called architectural salvage. Do you know about that? It's basically where you go in and you just rip bits off buildings and then go and sell them. So that's how I got interested in.
That's an interesting word for it. Architectural salvaging.
Architectural salvage,
it's basically just ripping copper and selling it to the copper mills, right?
Oh no! It's higher class than that. Okay. These buildings would be maybe 100 or 200 years old, and you'd go in and they'd have these huge brass door handles or a finger plate.
Yeah.
Finger plates. That's like the panel where it's on a door where it says push. So it would be like these antique finger plates. You push them and they're just made out of brass. And so I would go into buildings and with my screwdriver and just unscrew everything and then go and sell it. But it's when I was younger and more mercenary maybe. And then I remember one specific building. It was 1999, right? New Year's Eve, 1999. And I'd just been to see Fight Club at the cinema. Have you seen Fight Club?
I have, yes.
Yeah. I saw Fight Club at the cinema and there was no one else in the cinema. I was the only person there. It was New Year's Eve. And I thought, right, I need to go out and find an abandoned building so I can start a fight club. So as you do. So I went out and I was walking back towards home, and then there was this big Victorian building, which was the British Telecom building, which was abandoned. So I slid in there, and there's all these beautiful, gorgeous offices. And then I noticed there's, you know, like door handles and finger plates and things I could take. So the next night I came back like in my camouflage coat, and I had my camouflage army backpack, and I went in there with my screwdriver, unscrewing everything, putting it all in the bag, and then I squeezed out through it, and there's this security guard just walked straight up to me, and he looks at me and he goes, "You looking for a place to squat?" You know, squatting being like living in these. "You looking for a place to squat?"
Sure. Yeah.
Immediately I said, "Yeah." You know, he didn't care what was in my bag. He's like, "You looking for a place to squat?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Are you on the drugs?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on the drugs. You got any?" I wasn't. He's like, "Are you looking for a place to bed down tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah." So actually that New Year's Eve, he drove me to a nearby church where they had like a refuge for homeless people. And that night I spent at the homeless shelter. Then basically the next day I went out and sold all my loot, all my booty for about £200. So that was one.
Did he know? Did he know that you had stuff that you had stolen in your bag, and he just didn't care, or he didn't know?
No, he just thought I was a junkie.
Wow.
So that was one of my first experiences.
1999.
Yeah, it's a long time.
1999. How old were you then?
19.
How old were you? You're not. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you're 2 years older than me. Yeah, me too. I was born in 82.
Yeah. Golden years, right?
Dude, the 80s was a weird decade, man. The 80s was weird. You go back and watch like TV shows from the 1980s and early 90s. It was such an odd time. Like, you remember Full House? You remember that show?
I never saw that. Maybe it's like an American thing.
You never saw, maybe that was an American thing, but it was a sitcom that was supposed to sort of embody all these really just like conservative, not conservative, but what's the word, like family values, you know, and it was so squeaky clean and kind of just, I don't know, it was so unreal. It was an unrealistic portrayal of the perfect American family. And it was so like squeaky clean and so like sickly sweet that it was actually a really dark show. Like in retrospect, when you look back,
you've always got that dark.
But it was weird. I mean, you and I were we grew up in different places. You know, I grew up in Dallas, Texas, in the United States.
Oh, that's cool.
And I didn't start traveling until I turned 30. And I left the States because I was just sick of everything, and I didn't want to just, you know, settle down and get married. Like I was engaged, and I was working with kids. Actually, I was working in special education, and I just basically decided one day to drop everything and sell all my stuff, and I came to Asia just to have experiences. I've been here for 4 years. You've been here a lot longer than me, right? How long have you been in China?
I've been in China since 2004, so about 14 years. And
Jesus,
I've really seen it change. Yeah, I've really gone crazy.
Dude, 14 years in China.
I've gone full retard.
No, but for real, 14 years is, I would lose my mind. Like, I've been here for 4 years, which compared to how long you've been here. And I already, you know, the stuff in my head is getting loose. I have a tendency toward anger. I go outside and the first thing I see is somebody spitting all over the place. And I get really angry really easily. I already had a tendency toward anger, but China's a very stressful place, you know?
Yeah.
And I think
it brings out the worst in people.
Right. Some people. Now, I know there's people that love China and are able to adapt and are able to sort of assimilate to a certain degree. I mean, you'll never assimilate because it's China and it's just foreigners really just could never assimilate. But I know people that have taken to it a lot better than I have. But 14 years, dude, I would be in a psychiatric hospital.
I think I was last year, actually.
Were you in China? In
Uh,
China?
How can I talk about this one, right? So oh my God, now we're getting into deep conversation. Okay. Basically, I used to have a really good job, right? And I'm actually gonna say the name of the company that I worked for because they deserve not good things. So I used to work for British Council, and they run IELTS tests. So I was an IELTS examiner. That's like a English examination, so kids can go to university in America and England, right? And
Okay.
So I'd been working there 2 or 3 years, and British Council says that it has all these values, right? Like they say that they believe in mental health awareness. They believe in gender issues. You know, like if you want to be a transsexual at that company, that's supposed to be okay. There was the annual meeting or something, and this guy gets up and he's got Tourette's syndrome, and that's supposed to be about equal opportunities for people with mental illness. And you know, like this guy gets up and he's like, today I want to talk to you about Tourette's syndrome, fuck, you know, like, and this is the image that they present. But what you got to understand is, like, when a company like that operates in China, all of that goes out of the window, right? Any values they say they have just go out of the window in China, because you have to have partnerships in China. And so the Chinese just basically control it all. And I was having a lot of family issues because my wife was pregnant at that time, and she had really bad prenatal depression. She'd get like super fucking angry, and she wouldn't let me sleep. And if I don't get enough sleep, I get really fucking crazy. And then I would get complaints at work, and like I had to travel a lot for my job. So I'd be in hotel rooms just fucking raging, you know, like really upset, really fucking angry. And I would have to be interviewing people every day, right? Like 20 people a day I'd be interviewing, and I would get these complaints that I just looked angry all the time. Like my face was just like hard set anger like this. And when, you know, like you ask the questions again and again and again, it's like motherfucking Groundhog. Have you seen Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, right?
Yes. Imagine, I compare China to Groundhog Day all the time.
But imagine Groundhog Day, but not Groundhog Day, Groundhog quarter of an hour, right? So not just like the whole day repeating, just like every 15 minutes just fucking repeats. Because I'd go in and say, hello, can you tell me your name, please? And they say, ah. And you'd be like, your name? And they'd be like, ah. And I'd say, can you tell me your favorite animal? And they say, panda. And then the next person would be, can you tell me your favorite animal? Panda. And the next person, can you tell me your favorite animal? Panda. Can you tell me your favorite animal? Panda. What's your favorite color? Blue. What's your favorite color? Blue. What's your favorite color? Blue. Tell me about a famous person you admire. Jack Ma. You know Jack Ma, Alibaba.
Yeah.
Jack Ma. It's like, it gets to the point where you just shut the fuck. I never said it, but you're thinking it. You're thinking you're sitting in front of this person, just willing them to die, right? You just want them to just shut up and die. But, you know, I had to keep going because, you know, I needed the money. And then I remember being in a hotel in Xi'an, and it was a really nice hotel. And I'd remember that I'd just been doing these exams, and it got to the point where I just couldn't talk anymore, right? Like I was just sitting there in front of a student just with this face of anger, and I was just pouring sweat because I just
How old were these students?
They're like 18, 19 maybe. And I was just pouring sweat, and this poor girl must have been terrified. I was pouring sweat, and it wasn't a physical thing, it was a complete mental thing. I just couldn't talk anymore. I just couldn't say these words anymore. I couldn't listen to this shit anymore. And so I went back to the hotel in Xi'an, which was a Sofitel. And I got into the bath, and it was a really hot bath. And I got in the bath, and I took the razor, you know, like the safety razor, because I wanted to shave off my beard. And my beard was quite long. And that, you know, in China, they don't really have beards. So I started shaving, and the fucking razor wouldn't work. And I was sitting there, like, in the bath, trying to fucking shave like this, and it wouldn't come off. And I'd taken off half my beard, and I was sitting in the bath just crying like this with half a beard. And then I called up, and I called up the people in the reception. I said, like, look, I think I'm really sick. Get me a fucking razor, you know, like in Chinese. And they came up, and they must have thought I was completely insane, because I was like, I had half my beard was shaved off, and the other beard, and I was just like shaking, and I was all wrapped up. And then I think I'd actually had a nervous breakdown in Xi'an, in a hotel room, in a bath while shaving. And I think that's the first time I'd had a nervous breakdown. And I had a couple after that as well, but like, this gets back to what we were talking about. So my wife, she never took any of this seriously, but then at this point she starts realizing that maybe, like, I'm losing my fucking mind. So she asks her friend, who's like a psychologist, for this test, like the psycho test if you're psycho. Like, she starts asking me all these questions, and then her face like changes, and she realizes, like, maybe I'm a nutcase. So she takes me to the psychiatric hospital in China, right? Not the psychiatric hospital.
Did she give you a diagnosis? Like, what does that mean, a psycho test?
It's like about 200 questions. God knows where she got this questionnaire from. It's about 200 questions, and she was just, and it's never clear because she's translating it from Chinese, and she's like, tick, 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 tick. And then she like looks at me, and she's like, oh, maybe we should take you to the hospital. So she takes me to the hospital. And this is not Beijing, this is not Shanghai, this is fucking Changchun. There's not many foreigners here. And we walk into the hospital, and everybody turns to stare at me, right? Because it's a big fucking hospital. Everybody's staring at me, and they were like, Wai Guaran, Lao Wai, Mama, 你看，这个就是一个老外，妈妈，你看，这个是一个外国人，妈妈，妈妈，你看，他们不是中国人，妈妈，你看，是一个老外，妈妈，老外，他为什么在家呢? Just like that, right? I'm sure that happens to you too.
Absolutely, every day.
I'm walking through this hospital, and then we get to the psychiatric department, and we go in, and we're just waiting. And you know, when you go into the waiting room in China for any doctor, people are always like pushing through the door saying, "Eh, 他们在干什么呢? Eh, 他怎么样呢? You know, like, what the fuck's going on in this room? I want to know everything." You know, people are so nosy.
Right.
But like, I'm waiting in the same room as this other guy, and you know, like, this guy looks really fucked up. He's got like one eye going this way and one eye going this way, and there's some issue with his family, and you know, like, maybe his family put too much pressure on this guy. And she sits me. Then my wife is translating, and the psychologist starts asking me all these questions. And the first question is, do you feel like people are watching you? I'm like, they're watching me all the fucking time. I'm not fucking crazy. They literally are. And she's like, this is a sign of paranoia. I'm like, I'm not fucking paranoid. They're fucking watching me 24. You know, like when you go out in the street, right? And people point at you. Lawai, 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 lawai. People are watching me. And so that was kind of my experience of a psychological hospital. And they said, well, maybe you should take some medication. I'm like, I don't think I need the medication. I just need to get away more. And then at that point, I started like investing more time in urban exploration just to try and get away from people, because I fucking hate being around people all the time. It's like a mechanism to try and hide. Around that time, I went to Japan, and I went and explored the suicide forest. Have you heard of that before? Suicide forest in Japan?
Right. Yeah. I've seen. Yeah. I've seen some of your videos from the suicide forest. You have a series of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't interested in killing myself. I was just like wanted to get away from people. I really just wanted to be on my own for a while, because China can be pretty intense, and I just did it as cheaply as I could. The suicide forest, in case you don't know, is like this forest it's near Mount Fuji. It's at the base of Mount Fuji, and for over like the last 50 years or so, people have gone to that area to kill themselves. Basically, they hang themselves, and there's all these elaborate stories that have grown out of the forest. So last July, I went there to, check it out, make some videos, see if I could find any dead people. And also around the forest, there are abandoned hotels. The economy in the area is terrible because of the reputation of the forest. So I found I found a 5-star hotel which overlooks the forest. And that place is spooky as hell. That place is definitely haunted. You can check out the videos. And so I was checking out all these abandoned hotels. And like you were saying earlier about, I think we talked before about how Chinese people don't like to go into these kind of places.
Right.
In Japan, it's an extreme taboo not to go into these places. So when you go into these places, they're completely untouched. If you do it in China, everything's been ripped out. Anything of value has been ripped away. But in Japan, everything is just pristine. You go into these places and you find like computers and fax machines and bottles of whiskey that have just been there since like 1980, 1990, and everything's just pristine. And then as a result of those videos, my YouTube channel took off in December 2017 because of the Logan Paul scandal, like him finding that dead body. So I got
right.
Yeah. That was a crazy time. I love it there. You should go. You should definitely go. It's awesome.
Yeah, I definitely would like to go and explore. I've always wanted to go explore that forest, and anytime that I complain about China, my coworkers always tell me you should go and visit Japan, because Japan is like the polar opposite of China in terms of the way that people behave. Because a lot of times people here will say, well, the reason that people tend to be so rude in China is because of the density of, the population density. There's so many people that, they have it's survival of the fittest, and they have no other option. They have to be rude. But then the counter to that is that, well, I think Tokyo is the most densely populated city in the world.
Yeah.
And people don't behave like that there. And those are the same people essentially as Chinese. I mean, they're from the same place. They all migrated from the same place. So there's definitely a huge cultural difference. I mean, there's a cultural, like the culture is what influences people to behave in that way. And I would love to go and see Japan. I've been in China for so long, and I set out initially to travel. I wanted to travel the world, and I got stuck in China, and I got married and had a baby. But and I've been to Russia and Mongolia, and I've been to all the China territories, like Taiwan and Hong Kong and Macau. But it's like getting away from the mainland, even if just for a couple of days, is just such a relief. It's such a relief.
Japan is just a joy, it's quite, even though it's a very densely populated place, it's quiet, it's polite, the food is better there. I think Chinese food is okay, but Japanese food is clean and delicious. People are a little bit older there, a little bit more mature. I really like it there. If I didn't have a family now, I would definitely live in Japan.
Gotcha. So you've been in China for a long time. What was your motivation? Your motivation for leaving your home country? Well, first, you're from the UK, and I mean, so I've never been to the UK, but you know, the people from the States that leave to come specifically to China, you know, they have different motivations. But I think, you know, there's generally, if they fall into like 3 categories. You've got one, the people that leave because they want to travel and explore and just enjoy life, you know, have an adventure. I would fall into that category, or I did at one point. And then 2, there's people who leave because they feel like they could make more money here, you know, compared to the same job in the United States. And then 3, there's the stereotypical loser back home that leaves the country because they've burned their bridges and they have no social no friends, and they think maybe I'll fare better in China. Like, they have an idea that Chinese girls are easy and, you know, that life is easier, so they come. That's like the 3 categories of expats that I've seen here. So what was your motivation for leaving the UK 14 years ago?
I think it's just like, maybe I fit into number 1, like the adventurous type, but maybe a little bit of number 3 as well, because I was a bit of a loser. I think nothing really. I think I can. Wow, your baby's really screaming. I think.
I know. You know what it is, for anybody that's watching. I'm not neglecting this baby. She really likes this cartoon, this old cartoon that I used to watch when I was a kid, called Garfield and Friends 80. And I have it on, you know, I'll, if I need to do something like this, I'll put it on repeat. Okay. She normally doesn't watch TV. Her mom doesn't want her to watch TV. I don't want her to watch too much TV, but it's so rare that if I put the cartoon on, she'll watch it. She'll just sit there and just, she'll just watch it and she'll be quiet.
It just shuts them up.
Put it on repeat. Put it on repeat. So when it comes to the end and the credits roll, she'll start screaming, "Ah, mama, mama!" And then it starts over, and she's okay. So,
I used to love Garfield and Friends. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's actually a smart show. It's got a lot of it's not like as stupid as kids TV programming seems to be nowadays. All the computer generated stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. But like we had Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, like Garfield and Friends.
That was great. I loved Animaniacs. Do you ever watch that show, Johnny Bravo? Do you ever see that?
I've seen it before. I don't really watch a lot of TV now as an adult, just because I don't have time. But so I'm in terms of pop culture, I am not. I'm not. I don't know anything about pop culture nowadays. I'm an old man, dude. I'll be 36 in like 2 weeks, like 1 week. Well,
if you're old, that means I'm really old.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Whenever I say that to somebody that's older than me, it's like an insult.
No,
like, I'm old, and some dude's like 40.
But it's like on the outside, I look younger, but on the inside, I feel so fucking old. You know, like do you feel old in a way that makes you wise, or you feel old just like decrepit and like falling into pieces old? Can I say both?
That's okay.
I'm a wise skeleton. Like my knees have started to give up. I jump around a lot, you know, for urban exploration, and these days it takes my knees like 3 or 4 days to recover. It's terrible. I'm so old.
Yeah. Yeah, but we really aren't that old. Like, I have a 2-year-old. I know you have a 2-year-old. So I started late. Yes, you know, in my I think I was 33 when she was born, or 33. And so it's fun. My mom was 19 years old when she had me.
That's crazy.
And I cannot imagine, dude, when I was 19, I was completely out of my mind. Like, if I had a kid when I was 19, it would have been it would have been bad. That kid would be really fucked up. So it's
But,
good.
you know, like,
I
think a bit
leveled out, you
better to
know.
have a kid when you're 25, though. Like, I just have no energy for it. No energy at all. It's just all gone at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that really depends on how I
Mm.
feel. I definitely have less energy now than I did when I was 20 and
Yeah.
wild. Like I have ADHD and I was wild, man. I could stay awake for days. For days I
Mm.
could stay awake. And now I struggle to stay awake until 10 o'clock, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm awake 1 or 2 every day, but I'm
Mm.
in like a half awake, kind of just half sleep sort of
Yeah,
state.
I know that feeling. Mm.
So you
But
left the UK.
but like going to what I think we talked about, like insomnia before, and like maybe that you and I are both kind of night people, and uh, you know, when I lived in Beijing 5 or 6 years. I would just spend all night exploring. I would go out, you know, maybe 9 or 10 o'clock, and I would, you know, like explore abandoned buildings till 2 or 3 in the morning, and then go back and sleep in the day. And it was awesome. I really loved that part of my life. Can't do that anymore though, because sleeping babies and stuff.
Yeah, it's not even insomnia that I
Mm.
have. I just have sleeping issues.
Mm.
I have problems sleeping, but I also have problems waking up. I just
Yeah,
have a strange relationship with sleep. I have no willpower. That's the problem. I
yeah,
have
yeah,
no just discipline. Like I need to wake up earlier and do more things. And my wife
yeah.
is Chinese, so she's very much about being proactive and planning
Yeah,
things
yeah,
out. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so when I wake up late, dude, I wake up at 9 o'clock and my wife is pissed off like all day. She'll be angry
Mm.
because even though I work at night, I do stuff
Mm.
at night. You know,
Mm.
if I stay awake till 2 a.m.,
Mm.
I'm working, I'm doing stuff. I'm working on the channel, or I have other projects that I work on,
Mm.
and so I'm not just staying awake and being lazy, but I think it's so embedded in the culture here. Just you wake up early and you do your work
Mm.
in the morning and you
Mm.
start the day early, but that's just not how I it's not how I operate. I'm better at night. I'm much more
Yeah.
productive at night.
I'm the same way. I'm definitely the same. I get my better ideas at night. I'm more creative at night. It's just
Right,
my
right.
time. Yeah.
So you left the UK because we're getting into. We went off on a tangent.
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
you
So I used to work at a. So I come from Norwich, which is in the UK, and that's kind of a dead end area. That would be like the deep south in the States. You know, like right out in the sticks somewhere. And it's not a bad place, but people are a little bit backward there. It's the kind of place where you cousins marry each other, and if you go out into the countryside, maybe you see like a guy in the countryside where I live. They have these gigantic cats, like wah, 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 that kind of cat, but gigantic.
like
I,
bobcats.
no, just like gigantic cats, like a house cat, but imagine a huge house cat, right? These giant house cats. And you'd see people walking those on leashes in the countryside sometimes. Really, really strange stuff. And, like ferret farming, things like that. People would keep ferrets as pets. Ferret? I don't know what they call that.
Yeah.
You know,
Some I knew people that had ferrets. Yeah.
and people who would like cook roadkill and things like that. And so I was,
Is this where you grew up?
yeah, basically, this is where I grew up. I was
Okay.
lucky because I went to a boarding school, but there were lots of strange people around me all the time. And so then I started working at the Hilton Hotel at Norwich Airport. And I was probably 22 or 23, and it was just kind of a dead end. It's a good place to work, but it was a dead end. And we were talking earlier about this big Indonesian guy. This huge, he was really, really tall, huge, big Indonesian guy. And there were always people coming in and out of the hotel. And this guy worked at IBM. I remember he worked at IBM. And he came into the bar where I worked. It was called the Concord Bar. I was a barman there. And he basically came up and said, "Find me a girl." I was 22, 23. I was like, how do you find a girl? I didn't say that to him, though, because in the Hilton service is priority, right? So I went to my bar manager called Marie, who's this very tall, beautiful black lady. I said, this customer says he wants a girl. So she gave me this business card. She said, "Call this number." So I called the number, and about half an hour later, this petite girl shows up. She's probably about 5'2", 5'3", beautiful blonde hair, big tits. And she looked just like Marilyn Monroe. And she came to me and asked me which room this guy was in. So I said it, and then she's like, "Thank you." And she goes upstairs. About like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, she comes down, and she's just like completely deflated. You know, like this elephant man has just fucking sat on her and sucked all the juice out of her. And I think a lesson I learned from that is that, you know, if these kind of people, they can literally suck the life out of other people. These people are like fucking vampires. And when I was in that job, I felt like the life was being sucked out of me. And I looked at other people who worked there. There used to be this other guy called Kelvin, and Kelvin had been previously addicted to heroin, and people would just shit on this guy. You know, like, it takes an incredible amount of energy and willpower to get off something like heroin, and people would just shit on him every day. It's like, and I tried to be kind to him, but it's like everyone that worked there, their energy was just sucked out of them by rich people. But ironically, this Indonesian guy came down and he gave me a big tip. I guess he liked the girl. And then his advice was just like, get out of the UK. He said, "There's no opportunities here. You'd be better off going to Asia." So I started planning about how I could go to Asia. And it was through this company called English First, EF. And the agreement was that normally the teacher training would cost £1,000, but you could get it for free if you agreed to go to a city, to work in a city in China. So when I arrived at EF in Brighton, they gave me this long list of city names, and I knew nothing about China, nothing. And so I just went, I didn't even know what the capital city of China was. No idea. They gave me this list, I went, that one. And unfortunately, I'd chosen Changchun. And Changchun is like my Chinese birthplace, right? If you could choose to be born anywhere in China, Changchun would be the last place on earth you want to be born. And so I got sent here. And at that, like I said, I knew nothing about China. I didn't know how cold it was in the winter. So it was a really long flight because they'd only pay for really shitty flights. So I flew from London to Moscow, Moscow to Tokyo, Tokyo to Beijing, Beijing to Changchun. It's about 36 hours, I guess. And, you know, I went commando in the second half of the flight. You know, I wasn't wearing underwear because I didn't have any spare underwear. So I was going commando. And when I arrived in Changchun, it was the 7th of January, 2004. And it was the coldest winter in 40 years. It's like minus 45 Celsius or something. And I got off that plane, no underwear, and I was like, "Ah!" You know, like, it just felt like my balls had turned to ice. And I got off the plane and I just ran in and bought Chioku. That's like thermal underwear. Bought it in the airport. And basically from there, it didn't get any better. You know, like, my first year in Changchun was just fucking horrible. I've got a million stories about that, but I don't know how much time we've got.
I don't even know how long we've been on. I think we started around 2, right? We started around 2 o'clock. I think it's been like 45 minutes. Okay, so you came here. What have you done here for 14 years? I mean, like, you were teaching at one point, correct? Are you still doing that?
Not legally. I'm
Oh,
on a marriage visa right now, which means I'm not supposed to work, but I do a little bit of teaching on the side. My first year, mostly it's been teaching stuff, but I've been kind of lucky because I get other opportunities. When I was in Beijing, my website kind of started taking off. That got a lot of attention, so I've had some strange opportunities, let's say. Mm.
gotcha. So, man, 14 years. All right, what's your plan for the future? I mean, are you trying to just sort of call China home, or would you like to be gone
China,
at one
China,
point?
China will never be home. It's just like my brain is too numb at the moment to even plan getting out of here. You know that feeling, like
Oh yeah.
just this numbness. It's just like I just feel like giving up sometimes and just laying down and giving up. But I still keep trying. I make my YouTube videos. That helps me out a bit, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely. It's hard to find the time to, if you're working full time
Mm,
and you're also dealing with a lot of the stress of having a family and a relatively new family in the
yeah,
same situation as me.
yeah.
I don't know how long you married, but I've been
Mm,
married for 3 years.
mm,
I met my wife accidentally.
mm,
I just met her. I wasn't looking to get married, but I
mm,
met a girl. We ended up married. We had a baby,
yeah.
and it's a lot to juggle, especially for somebody who maybe like me.
Mm,
I really I appreciated the idea of irresponsibility at
mm,
you and say you're irresponsible. You need to settle down and you need to,
mm,
whatever, examine your priorities. But for
mm,
me, that irresponsibility that I chose when I was 30 to get up and
mm,
travel and just not worry about anything, it was very liberating.
yeah.
And I wanted to continue down that path. I just wanted to
Mm,
be, free and explore and travel. And I had this really romantic idea about not having any attachment to
mm,
anything. I sold all my stuff. I left
mm,
my home country. I abandoned a lot of my priorities.
mm,
I was very irresponsible, but I had romanticized that irresponsibility.
yeah.
But then all that ended up happening was I just started meeting people, forming relationships in another place,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the idea of long-term travel as a means to escape responsibility, it just really doesn't work unless you don't form attachments with anybody.
Yeah.
And whatever, I ended up in the situation I'm in now, which is I have a kid, a wife. I am working. Well, I'm working one job basically, and I'm teaching. I teach ESL,
Mm,
and I'm stuck now because I have so much responsibility that this romanticized idea of travel as a means to escape, being a human, it didn't work. I'm just back.
well, that
I'm back in the
that's
same.
that's the irony, right? Is that you left the States to get away from like the shackles of responsibility, right? But
Right.
the shackles of responsibility in China, they're much tighter and they're much stronger. There's so much more responsibility if you have a family here in China than there would be for me in the UK or in the US for you maybe. It's much tougher being a father here. It's much tougher having a family here. It's so difficult, just like all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then
The
and
the
then
men.
then my wife as well. And she does this all the time, right? She forgets that I'm a foreigner. She forgets it. She just completely forgets I'm a foreigner and just assumes that I can do all the things here that a Chinese man can do. I was like, she'd be like, go deal with the Wi-Fi system was down for a while. And she's like, go deal with the Wi-Fi. I'm like, I can't. And she says, but you can speak the language. I'm like, it's not about me speaking the language. It's about the way people interact with me. Everything is just difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, it's hot. It's really
Yeah,
hot in this apartment.
I got the fan on.
No, you know what? I'm trying to get good audio because the video sucks so much. So I'm trying to compensate with good audio. So
Yeah.
everything that makes noise, I've got turned off. So the
Mm,
air conditioner is off. So it's like an
mm,
oven in here.
yeah.
The thing about being a father and especially being a husband in China is
Mm,
that you're expected to not only support yourself and your baby and your wife, but
mm.
you're also expected to support your wife's extended family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's like it's common for like when a dude gets married here, you know, a Chinese man meets a Chinese woman, he it's common for him to show his bank account information and his
Mm,
stocks and his portfolio
yeah,
to his girlfriend's family before they approve of the marriage.
yeah.
And then
Mhm.
when they get married, he pays money to the woman's family. He
Yeah.
gives them money like, okay, we're getting married, here's money.
Mm,
And then
mm,
he's expected to take care of like her mom, her
mm.
dad, her grandparents, if they're still alive. And I always say I'm so that my wife doesn't like her family because like she's pretty much just excommunicated from her family.
Mm,
That it's a long story and I don't want to get into too much of that because that, you know, that's her story, but they did not treat her well. I think they wanted a boy. Like she's the youngest daughter, the youngest of two girls, and they
mm.
doted on her sister, but when she was born they were very disappointed that she wasn't a boy, to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
point where if you look at the pictures of her when she was a kid, they're
Mm.
all like she wore boy clothes and they cut her hair to make her look
Mm,
like a boy, like they really wanted a boy. And
mm,
I think they had a lot of resentment that
mm.
she wasn't a boy. So
Yeah, yeah,
she's, you know, she had a bad relationship with them, so she doesn't really talk to them. So all of that supporting her extended family thing,
mm,
because I'm having problems right now just dealing with the family. You know, we got medical debt and all kinds of, you know, I'm
mm.
dealing with all kinds of stuff. So dude, the pressure that's put on a Chinese man is unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
Unbelievable.
And that's probably why they drink so much, they smoke so much. Uh, if people in this country could take
Yeah.
drugs, they would fucking kill themselves. Uh, don't give handguns to Chinese people. They'll destroy themselves. Yeah, it's like
I don't know.
people
It's
are
a
on a
high
self.
stress environment.
Yeah, but it almost feels like Chinese people, especially Chinese men, are very self-destructive a lot of the time. Like if I go out to drink, I'll get drunk and I'll drink a lot, but they it feels like they just want to destroy themselves almost sometimes. Just the way they drink, the way they smoke, everything's done to extremes, I think.
Right, right. I think it's just to the pressure, and it's a response to the demands of the environment that they're in.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, on one hand, I have to maintain this sort of this image of responsibility and this image of constantly working, constantly being on point, you know. So when they have the opportunity, you know, they need to go to the other extreme, that extreme end
Yeah.
of the spectrum, which is, like you said, it's self-destruction. And you know, I think it would happen in any culture that valued the appearance of being busy
Mm,
over everything else. And it's not
mm.
even about really being busy, it's just about maintaining the illusion that you're busy. As long
Yeah.
as you look like you're busy, there's
Mm,
this sort of superficiality involved with education, with the corporate environment.
mm.
It's just very surface, you know, but there's not really, I feel like a
That's so
lot of
bad.
it counterproductive.
Mm.
But so before we go, let's get into your I guess we haven't talked much about urban exploration,
Not
but
really, no.
no, see, I always start these things thinking I tackle this one subject and it never happens, you know, because I'm so scatterbrained, so
Yeah, me
the
too.
conversation just bounces around.
Mm,
But you know, the first two podcasts that I did were me talking about my history with urban exploration.
mm,
You know, I used to I think I told you this the first time we attempted this, that the first place I visited, the first abandoned place I visited was an AMC movie theater
Okay.
it had closed like a year prior, and my friend and I, we just took a crowbar and we broke
Mm.
into this place. And it was just, I tell this story on the, I think the first episode of the podcast.
Mm.
And it was just an amazing experience because I never had really thought about, you don't really think about, I wonder what it would be like to, to walk around an empty movie theater,
Mm.
but there's so much there. There's so much, there's an energy there that's very different from the energy of any other place. It's this idea that there was so much that happened there. There were people that enjoyed themselves. There were families that went there. They ate, they watched movies. And then, but when you go in after it's done and it's gone and everything's been ripped out, it's this odd sort of energy, like all of this stuff was moving forward, and then one day it just stopped moving and it started to just disintegrate. So ruins of this idea, this concept, fun, entertainment, but it's just like the kind of death of those things. And it has a morbid energy to it, but I enjoy that. I really like the kind of the menacing vibe of it.
That's a feeling I often miss a lot of the time. Is like you were describing about, you had this place and it had this life and then it died. But in China, you get something which is kind of the opposite, is that like you can imagine an old man who has this long life and then he dies, right? And that's like your AMC theater. But at the other extreme in China, you have these places which are built and then maybe they're 70% built and then they never get used. So it's almost like you're exploring, for want of a better word, like an aborted fetus, or like a stillborn child, and you're going around and you're looking at this thinking, well, what could have been the potential of this place? So for example, you talked about an abandoned movie theater. I'm a little bit well known for exploring this place in Beijing, and above Dongjimen Station, which is the central hub, there's these 2 skyscrapers and then this huge complex, and there's a big shopping mall there. It's called Guosen Mall, and it was never completed. It's worth 100 billion yuan or something like that, and it was never completed. And so people tried to break into these skyscrapers. There's an abandoned shopping mall which was never completed, and like you said, going around this shopping mall and going around this abandoned movie theater which was never completed, and it's the thought, what could this have been? You're talking about what it was, and I'm thinking about what it could have been. That's why I'm visiting these abandoned places.
And you're right, it is different in China, because in China there tend to be a lot of these unfinished construction projects, like what you're talking about. There are like 3 of them just within walking distance of where I live. There's an abandoned shopping mall, and it's not abandoned, it's an abandoned project. Like it was built, but it's empty. There's nothing there. And they have a security guard that's there. There's a security guard there 24 hours. There's always somebody there. And he sits there and he watches over this place that has nothing inside of it. Like the escalator still has the shrink wrap plastic stuff over it. Like it's never been used. Yeah. And so you're right about the potentiality.
The funny thing is, if you went into that building and that security guard caught you and then he reported you, he would lose his job. So it's in his best interest just to say, hey man, get out of here. That's
right. That happened to me once, actually. I was drunk with my friend. It was like my first month here, and we were driving around on his moped, and he was like, we should go explore that. It was a place that was being built. It's like an office building that was being built. But the front of it was open. You could just walk up inside. So we just got off his motorbike, drunk, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we walked up there, and we were walking around, and a security guy came. And he just chuckled. He just kind of chuckled at us. He didn't even say anything. He escorted us out of the building, and that was it. Oh, and that place is still there, and it's still not opened, and it's just sitting there. It's just like a an
Totally
office.
go
I don't know.
filming.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like a lot of it has to do with like tax scams or some. I mean, somebody's profiting from these
It's
construction projects, right?
corruption and projects running out of money. That's a pretty common one because
Yeah,
in the 90s and the early noughties, people were throwing money at these projects, and it was a high failure rate as well. People talk about
yeah.
success in China, but there's a lot of failure here too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I live, I don't live in the city. I live on the outskirts of the city. Huh?
Mm.
Oh, the babies. The baby's over here. I think she's upset because the show ended. Baby, yeah, you're a baby. Dad, yeah. There's a smart baby. Smart baby, man. Well, okay, I want to say one other thing. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, the businesses, there's businesses that just come and go. Like, a new business pops up. It's there for 2 months. There's never any customers. And then they got the building. A new business opens up, never customers. They got the build, and it happens every couple of months, and it's everywhere all the time. And I think they're either really bad business people or there's some kind of scam going on because somebody's got to be profiting from it.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much empty property here, and there's definitely something going on. So what's the best place you've ever explored, do you think? When you think about it.
So I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, but I lived in Baltimore, Maryland for 10 years throughout my 20s. And I was introduced to the idea of urban exploration as a culture, as a subculture and they were really into exploring. So they ended up taking me to all these different places. And that's how I really got into it as an idea, because before it was just this thing I had done for fun. There were 2 places that come to mind that left a lasting impact on me, and they were both hospitals. One was called Rosewood Center, which was a half abandoned psychiatric hospital in that place was so creepy. It was in Owings Mills, Maryland, and it was a big campus. Oh yeah, the baby wants. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay.
Right.
What? What's up?
I'm gonna get tea.
Sad baby. Sad baby. Come on, you wanna come down? Huh? Yeah? He's a sad baby. He's just a sad baby. Come on. You walk around? You're a good baby. Wow, yeah. All right. Oh, Brin's gone. Brin left my show. We're real professionals here. This is a professional production that we run.
Yeah, I got Mr. Man here as well.
Hey, you want to come here? Oh yeah, what's up with Mr. Man? Who is that?
Well, I live my window. The window here just looks out into the recycling area.
Yeah.
Where all the old ladies come and take their recyclables, and I looked out one morning and this was in one of the tricycles, and I just wanted it as soon as I saw it. So I ran out and I gave her 5 UN for it. It's actually quite big. Look, it's a big thing, and it's got all the acupuncture. We were talking about cupping earlier, right? You remember with the red circle?
Right. Yeah.
So you can see all the acupuncture points on the hair. There's all acupuncture points and lines, and you want to get the circles on those points to clear the channels, let's say. So
yeah.
And you can see.
I'm sorry. Did you say 5 kwai or 5,000? How much did you pay for that?
5 kwai. 5 kwai.
Oh, I thought you said 5,000. I was like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay 5,000 for that.
So I'm sorry, the baby's got what is going on? Unfortunately she's learned how to adjust the volume on the iPad, and she wants it as loud as possible, right?
Oh, iPads are the devil, really.
Oh my god. She loves it though. I mean, my first computer was a Commodore 64.
Yeah.
So hey, she'll grow up more technologically advanced, like far more advanced than I ever will be.
Well,
she probably already is.
We grew up without the internet, didn't we?
I mean, yeah. When the first experience I had with the internet was Prodigy, and it was before the internet, so everything was filtered through whatever your ISP was. Do you remember that? Like, there was AOL, but all you could access were AOL services. It was prior to the browser, you know?
No,
come on. I want to have a compromise with this baby. Like, we just keep it at half volume, right? She does.
You can't compromise with a baby.
No, not a 2-year-old. She's 2.
They're just terrorists.
Compromise with a 2-year-old.
They just want to terrorize your life.
The terror. Okay. So Rosewood Center was an abandoned. It was a big campus, and it was a psychiatric hospital at one point. So what ended up happening was it shut down because, well, there are a lot of reasons that it shut down, and I think I'm going to do a video about this at some point. There are a lot of reasons it shut down, but a big part of it was that there was a lot of abuse that was happening from the staff to the patients. And actually they ended up shutting down in, I want to say it was 2000, and they only shut down half of the campus. So there was kind of a campus on one side of this big field, and there was a campus on the other side. And one of the campuses stayed open, but the other one was shut down. So you could just go, and it was like 5 or 6 buildings. And it was creepy. It was a very, very dark place. I'm not a religious person. I don't really necessarily believe in anything spiritual. I'm open to the idea of it, but the energy in that place was like what I would expect something demonic to feel like. It was oppressive. It was like, it wasn't angry energy. It was oppressive, dark, sad, like profoundly sad energy. And it was a trip, man. We used to go there all the time, and I got very attached to that place. It's hard to explain to somebody that's never had these kinds of experiences before, but I was very attached to it. I felt like connected to it emotionally on some level. And I think it was, I want to say 2004 or 2005, somebody set it on fire. And like a bunch of the buildings caught fire, and it was on the news. And ever since then, a lot of it was destroyed, but ever since then, there have been police officers that camp out all the time. There are police officers that camp out, and what are you doing? Just trying to play some game, and all day, and just prevent people from going into the buildings. I'd say probably that's probably the most interesting place that I've explored because of the darkness. Like, you could go into the rooms. There was a building that just was patient rooms, and you go into these rooms and just sit down in the middle of a room that these psychiatric patients were held in, and you could just shut the door and sit there in the dark. And it's absolutely terrifying. I mean, it really is terrifying, not just because you imagine what it was like to be there, but also there's some, whatever residual energy is there. There's some kind of energy that's held over from what took place there, because it had been open since, I want to say, the I don't remember when it was open. I don't want to give the wrong information, but it was open for a long time. So it felt like all that energy built up, all of those people that were sort of trapped in these rooms that were going through, because a lot of them were not even, back in the day, in the 60s and the 70s, it was considered, you know, it was an embarrassment to have a family member, especially a child, that had a psychiatric disability. Even you know, people with just physiological disabilities. And so there were much more willing parents during those times in the 60s and the 70s to take their kids and just put them, to hide them away in these facilities.
Yeah.
And so this was a government run facility. It was, you know, it was funded by state money, by the state of Maryland. So taxpayers were paying for this place to stay open, and they were basically just housing undesirables. They were housing people that needed treatment, you know, that, so you can really feel that energy in that place. And like I said, I'm not big into the ghosts, and, you know, I don't really believe in any of that, but man, that place, there was something in that place. And you know, you never forget that feeling.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you mentioned psychiatric hospitals. I lived in London in 2012. And at that time, I was kind of depressed, and I would do a lot of urban exploration. And then there's a famous area in London called Mile End, and I would cycle around there. And then just one day, by chance, I saw this huge abandoned psychiatric hospital, and it's like a Victorian building. You know, so this building's like 200 years old or something. And it's this complex of psychiatric buildings, and there was about 16 buildings. And there's a graveyard around the back, a cemetery around the back. So I climbed over, and over about 2 months, I just busted in every door I could to get into all of these buildings. But I was saving the big building with a clock tower till last. And I couldn't figure out how to get into this building because it had like bars on the windows. But then one day I was in one of the sheds and I found a ladder. So I climbed up the ladder. I went up 2 stories. Climbed up onto the roof. The roof was like this, but it had a walkway on top of the, like a triangle cut off. So I walked along that,
Right.
Busted open a window, squeezed in, and then it was clear that nobody had been in this building for a long time, right? It's like all this white shit hanging off the walls, like where the paint peels. Maybe it's asbestos, I don't know. Go into all these rooms, and you can really feel that, like you said, this dark, oppressive energy. Went through all the wards which have been stripped out, went downstairs, and there's like these gurneys, but they got huge video cameras above the gurneys. I guess they were like filming operations, maybe, with these big video cameras. There was this clock tower which went up, a square clock tower. So I start going up the clock tower, and I'm taking pictures from behind the clocks. There's all these pigeons up there, and I could see one security guard outside, right? He was in the front, and he was supposed to guard this whole place. And I knew that there was no other way to get into that building, right? But then from the bottom of the stairs of the clock tower, I can hear footsteps coming up the fucking clock tower from the bottom. And I really panicked because I knew there was no one up in that building. I ran out through the window, across the flat part of the roof. But when I got there, the ladder was gone. You know, like the ladder had been taken away. I was like, fuck. So I grabbed hold of the drain pipe and I shimmied down the drain pipe. And that was the last time I went into that building, because those buildings were, I don't know about ghosts, but that place was definitely haunted. But then I spoke to my friend Lauren. Lauren used to break into buildings for squat parties. And I said, well, is it a ghost? And she said, no, it's just junkies. And I said, well, why would junkies spend time in a fucked up building like that? And she said, you'll never know what's in a junkie's mind. You know, they go to these dark holes and they just want to hide and be left alone and shoot up. And, you know, so that's a risk of exploring in London, but you'll never see that in China. You'll never find junkies in abandoned buildings here. Yeah, I think it's kind of safer.
There's nobody. There's nobody in random buildings. Like I've never doing exploration in China. I've never run into a single person.
It's happened to me twice, but not for a long time. The first time was this huge abandoned neighborhood, and it was just like a neighborhood, and it was going to be demolished. And I came in, and this guy had made this little altar. It was this little tiny altar, and the Chinese on it said something like, "This altar faces my grandparents' direction, my grandparents' town. I'm sorry that I cannot be there." And then I saw this guy in the corner of the room, like his hair was all wiry like this, and his face was black with dirt, and he had red eyes, and he must have been drinking baijiu or something, because like he stank of baijiu. I mean, this guy was just like caked with dirt. I was like, and then I just ran. The other time was in there was an abandoned multi-story parking lot. There was a ramp, and underneath the ramp I saw a tent. And so I thought, I want to know what's inside the tent. So I started to unzip it. But as I was unzipping it, the tent started to shake. I'm like, fuck. I started to run. And what I assumed was a junkie. He was like a real tall guy, just in his underwear, because it was a hot day. Just in his underwear, he comes out and he's like this, and he starts running towards me. I was like, fuck. And there was this really tall wall, maybe like 6-7 feet tall. He's running towards me. I'm running, and I just jump over the wall. And there's these bushes and trees on the other side, and he jumped over that really easily. He's fucking chasing me through the fucking bushes. Then we get to this barbed wire fence, and I just said, fuck it, and I jumped as high as I could over this barbed wire fence, and then he stopped chasing me. But there are definitely junkies out there, probably like ketamine or meth. I don't know what the fuck they take here.
I don't know. I've actually heard that there's a pretty big meth problem here. I've never seen it personally, but I've heard rumors that there are a lot of meth addicts here. That's just what I've heard. I don't know how true that is. We should probably I should probably go deal with this baby. I'll show you this. Hold on 1 second. Come here. Look at this baby. Hello. Hello. No, she doesn't want to say hi.
Hello, baby. No,
dude, that's the lore of the iPad, man. If I sit her in front of that iPad for like 10 hours, she'll just sit there at it and play with it. And you try and take her away from it, and she's like, no.
Yeah.
Just like that. Says no. Oh, did it die? It didn't die. All right. Well, I'm gonna go. I gotta go deal with this. I gotta go deal with this baby. Okay. And plus, I think I'm about to die. It's so hot. I don't know if it's hot where you are, but like it's so hot.
It's really hot.
Oh my god. Well, hey, at least we did it. This was successful, right?
I mean, finally got it together, right? My batteries are about to die.
Say that again.
My batteries are about to die.
Batteries are about to die. Yeah. Yeah. I want to take the baby outside and like play. I don't like leaving her in front of the iPad as a babysitter. But my wife is out. She's at a doctor's appointment. So if I want to do anything that involves, her not being in my face, because if she doesn't have the iPad, she'll be up in my face, like she'll be crawling on me. And so I'm gonna spend the rest of the day. I'm gonna play with the baby because I feel bad. She's got no attention today, and she's used to having a ton of attention. So yeah, no, thank you for coming on. This is fun. It's good. I don't know what else is there. I guess
you're gonna leave a link to my channel in the description, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. So the description you set before you start the live stream. So I have a link to two things: a link to your YouTube channel. And anybody watching, there are 2 people watching right now. I have no idea who they are, but it says I have 2 viewers. So the 2 viewers that are watching, I don't know who they are or why they're watching, but
thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, thanks for watching. There's been somebody in here watching for like the whole time, so Sweet. That's pretty cool. definitely check out Brin's channel. It's really cool. He actually goes in and doesn't just explore, but he talks about the places. He gives kind of an analysis of the history of some of these places. Really great videos. Check out his website. I haven't spent too much time on your site, but I'll definitely check it out. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. We'll have to do this again sometime. Maybe we'll come on with a more what's the word? With a more
we've definitely got to collaborate sometime.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll do, you know, we were talking about maybe like switching videos. I'll make a video for you, you make a video for me. Or if you're ever in Shanghai, you can just hit me up and, you know, we'll come up with something. We could do something, definitely.
Okay. I'll see you later.
All right. It was good. For everybody watching, thank you for watching Triad Travelogues. Check out some of my other videos. Check out Brin's channel, subscribe to his channel, subscribe to my channel. Oh, you have like, I think you have 957 subscribers now, right?
Well, that's one more than yesterday. Yeah, I'm almost at 1,000.
Yeah, and 1,000 for those that don't know is monetization. So when you get to 1,000, that's the magic number. You can monetize your channel. So go subscribe to his channel. If all of my subscribers, because I have like 200 something, if all of my subscribers went and subscribed to your channel, you'd be over 1,000. So yeah. So yeah, check it out. I really appreciate everybody watching. We'll see you next time.
Cool.